This is SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. I'm your host, Todd Kirk. I'm joined by my world-traveling compadre, Casey Trujillo, who just recently went to the grocery store. So almost crazy, you know.
Yeah,
Actually, I talked to him at the gym this morning, too. I mean, he's all over the world, the gym
get my passport stamped everywhere, TK. But hey, I am headed to Portugal. So if any of our audience has any advice about Portugal, places to go, things to see, let me know, please.
And he's going to go see those 100-foot waves, hopefully. Casey,
you know it, man. Yeah, seriously. I mean, that's not the reason why we're going, but yeah, we're going to stop by and see it.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, Casey, good to have you as always. We're joined by one of our favorite people in the world, Andrea Nottingham, who is a good friend. We've known Andrea now. How long, Andrea, have we known you?
Like 10 years decade? This year.
10 years? Whew, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So Andrea, actually, I'm going to introduce you, Andrea, if that's okay.
Perfect.
Andrea has a really awesome career. And she's done a lot, but before she actually works with Casey and I at BrainStorm now as a client success manager. But in a previous life, she worked in IT for a really large organization and was responsible for driving adoption of technology. So she has lived on both sides. You know, this is a SaaS Therapy story about helping your customers and so the relationship between your customers. And it's not always that we get to talk to someone who has been both. So it's going to be great. Andrea, welcome to SaaS Therapy. We're glad to have you on.
Thank you. Honored to be a part of it.
So Andrea, as we get started, when we first started this episode, this podcast, I think you were one of our first guests, and you did a fantastic job of talking. Okay, from the perspective of your customer, here is what you should know as a CSM, right? And it was awesome. You had so many great takeaways for CSMs because you were giving that perspective from the customer's point of view. Now you've been a customer success manager for 2 years. So it's kind of like, you know, when I first had kids, I had a lot of people, you know, parent me on how to be a parent. And when I had little kids, I had parent other people on how to be parents. And then I had teenagers and I'm like, wow, I know nothing about parenting. Has any of that changed for you as you went from the customer to the customer success manager? Is there any changes where you're like, oh, I thought that was maybe right, but now maybe I've expanded my views on that? I don't know. Has that changed at all since you've been into this now for 2 years?
Oh, that is such an interesting question. There's so many different ways I can go with that question. You know, I would say yes and no. I think I had such an amazing experience as a customer, BrainStorm, the responsibilities that I had, the team that I was on in my previous life. What I'm finding is, you know, everybody says their organizations are different, right? And they absolutely are. But one of my favorite things is we're all the same unicorn, right? We're all similar unicorns. I think that one of the big things, if I were going to give, let's say another client success manager some advice, is help your customers know what success means. To be honest, I thought all customers already knew what success meant. And as I dig in with my customers, I'm really finding out that they don't. They don't know.
I like this juicy stuff, Andrea. Give us an example of what that looks like. So, is it just the customer flat out saying? And again, let's go through what you do every day. So the audience knows Andrea helps organizations better adopt Microsoft technology, right? So, can you give us maybe an example for the audience so they have a better understanding of like, okay, hey, you know, you renewed our contract with us. And again, so the audience knows BrainStorm, we are the best at AI adoption, core adoption of features and applications. We have a scalable platform. So Andrea is almost acting like a Microsoft CSM in some regard. She needs to know Microsoft, she needs to know change, and then utilize our platform to help your point of contact get that change out there. So give people an example of what you mean when they're not really sure about the outcome and how you guide them in that. Give them some context around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only thing I'll add to that, Casey, is a lot of my clients, I help them with other software as well. So not just Microsoft. It's definitely our main topic, but we're really starting to expand out into other software. And what I'm realizing is um, we really have to dig deeper with our clients. A lot of their success means, in our case, right, they're taking the training and they're learning about it. And so helping my customers understand that we really need to help your users not just understand it, but change their behavior. Go in and use the software, no matter what it is, differently, to work better, faster, smarter, and really utilize so many features. As we all know, most people don't use, but maybe 10 to 20% of the features in software, and helping them to understand, especially my IT customers, of the folks that do what I used to do, how important eliminating shadow IT is. And so it's not just usage, it's not just learning, it's really digging in to say, hey, what does success mean for you? Is it, are they changing their behavior and using this software differently? Are they using it the way that your organization wants them to use it? And really understanding what their goals are, because, at a high level, you go all the way up to the CIO, let's say, their goal is not that people are learning, right? It's that people are doing things differently, that they're changing their behaviors. And so that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned, is that is not as obvious to everyone. And then I remembered that it wasn't maybe as obvious to me. And maybe my client success manager and the team behind him really helped me understand what success looked like. And so that's a big part of the job.
Okay, so by the way, for any of you, obviously for us, we wanted to have Andrea on because her perspective is so meaningful, having been somebody who sits on both sides. But regardless of what application you sell, this is, I think, super relevant for anybody and everybody. Andrea, I think one of the things that is obviously challenging to a lot of CSMs out there, I think, is the fact that a lot of times the way you didn't, I don't know if you said it exactly like this, but I'm going to restate it and you can tell me if you agree or not.
Perfect.
But it almost feels like a lot of times customers think they know what success is, but they really don't. And so how do you help them see their blind spots and then recognize that maybe they're not focusing on the right thing, or they haven't really defined success right? And if that's the case, how do you do that in a way that doesn't come across as patronizing or combative, or like or do you even want to strike a balance? Or maybe it is better to be a little bit more aggressive with your customer. Like, I don't know. I'm curious your take on that, because that's actually something that I feel like I struggle with. I don't always have the confidence that I'm saying it in a way that's going to be best received for the customer.
I think it's a great question. I think I definitely struggle with that as well. I'm a Texas girl, but grew up in the Northeast, and so I can be very direct. So I've had to definitely soften my approach, because they don't know what they don't know. And so some of the things that I do are really looking at their data, really looking at the story behind their data, getting as much maybe visibility, or engaging with their stakeholders as well, to understand what those high level goals are. And I use a lot of yes and statements. So yes, and so that it kind of confirms what they're saying, because that is success. That has been success to them. And so it takes time, having patience and grace. I mean, I've seen, like Casey mentioned, it's been almost 2 years now, and in the very beginning, it can be frustrating, especially when you've done it, right? But just being patient and giving people grace, and engaging with their stakeholders, continuing to build on that data story and kind of plant those seeds over and over. It took about, let's say, 6 to 8 months, when some of those seeds started to sprout. And so seeing the success that people are having now, and they're understanding how the successes that they first maybe were measuring are great. and it's a yes, and there are so many more that can contribute, or so many more things that can contribute to those success factors. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
mean, I love the yes and idea. I think it's such a good thing to remember, because it's not always. Sometimes I think our goal is to tell the customer that they need to think differently, but
Mhm.
maybe it's they need to think more expansively. So we don't have
Yeah,
to go in and tell them that the think that they are doing is wrong, but
right.
maybe we could add a little bit more to what you're thinking about. And I actually think that's a really healthy and good way to approach it. So actually, really good, really good.
Expansively.
I
So
love that.
Todd yesterday threw out a word that didn't exist. I'm going to have to look that one up. Is that one real? Would that
Expansively?
show up? Yeah, would that show up on my Scrabble if I was playing?
Yes, of course it would.
Okay.
It's
I'd
the
approve it
it's
for sure.
making expansive is a word, and you're just taking it from an adjective and turning it into an adverb. What's wrong with that?
Please say there's some English majors out there that are going to comment on that. Okay. So, and again, my background being in sales. So here's three best practices, and Andrea, you can agree, disagree on these. So, number one, hey, what are the key performance indicators that you're going to be measured by this year? That's one I always like to ask, just because it draws out. Because I believe that sometimes it's not necessarily that we need to guide them. Sometimes we do, but I think a lot of times we just need to draw out of them the information they already have in their head, and then connect. So I always like to ask, hey, what do your KPIs look like for this year? Just to understand where we're standing. Hey, as we look into the next 12 months, I'm not trying to push a renewal on you. What I'm trying to say when I ask this question is 12 months from now, why would you renew? What would that have to look like for you to renew? I always like to ask that question. That's one for me. Another one is, are there any initiatives that leadership is saying, hey, we need to accomplish that this year? Again, that's the best one if you can tie something massive back to the what you do in your daily job. So, for example, if someone's like, we know that everybody's stressed, we're in this hybrid workforce, we just want people to have some focus time, some downtime. Oh, okay. So what's keeping people from not having downtime? Oh, they answer way too many emails. Is that internal emails or external emails? Well, that's a good question. I don't know. Hey, could we go look at the data? What if we ran a campaign around reducing down internal emails? And what if we focused down around Slack messages or Teams messages versus sending an email? How many people send email and attachments still, right? So you get where that could go from. So those are just a couple of best practices that I'll throw out there. Andrea, you're the expert. I want you to go through this, though, and I want you to be a little vulnerable on this. One of the things that you do differently than most CSMs do is you actually handle the renewal. Andrea, you do not come from a sales background. You have been military background, IT background, adoption background, and then you get put in this spot and it's like, okay, Andrea, handle this large 6-figure renewal. Or, hey, just so you know, so our CSMs also do upsells. They partner with their sellers, but they really are basically driving upsells. Andrea, what was that like? What did you feel like doing that? And what have you learned?
Oh, it was awkward at first. I'm going to be totally vulnerable with you. It was completely vulnerable, or it made me feel vulnerable, and was very awkward. Just with my clients. I mean, I don't have a problem asking for the sale. I mean, I kind of grew up on the go for no situation, taught my kids that. Totally backfired, by the way. Do not teach your kids go for no. But it was awkward. And the reason it was awkward that I found was it's not just asking for the sale. It's trying to find a solution that fits them and not be just about the dollar. That was one of the things that I would say really stood out to me working with BrainStorm versus many other vendors. And this isn't just who are BrainStorm, but truly caring about your customers, building that trust, and having them understand that it's not just about the dollar, that if they need to expand their licenses, it's so that they can reach all their users. So they're not having to do as much manual work. If it's additional software or additional packs or, additional upsells, let's say, it's not just I'm trying to make a buck. It's how can I help you be successful and meet your goals and not have you go out and spend a bunch of money on things that we know isn't going to work. So I think once I wrapped my head around that, and it came from a really authentic place, because I hate to be sold to also. Most people do. And just really trying to right size what they need and not just be about the dollars.
Andrea, everybody rewind that one. That was a 2-minute clip.
Right size what they need.
Gold.
That was nerdy. Sorry, everybody's like cringing right now. They're like, Tom, that was
we think we're like Todd lost his audio. But that is one of the things that I would recommend to any seller, any CSM, is start with intentionality. Start with, I want to be authentic to myself and I want to be authentic to others. Now, people can hide behind that. Sometimes they can be like, well, why as a CSM, I shouldn't ask for the sale. If you're helping somebody out and they're like, okay, well, how do I do this? Well, of course, you got to buy something to go do that. That's the way this is going to work, right? And it's not that you feel awkward about it. It's just that's natural and normal. So I love that as gold. Start with your intentionality. Now, that's not to say that if you don't have an intentionality, you can't be super successful as a CSM. Right. You can go in there and you could pound them and you could get the money and you could use every tactic out there to get people to buy. What Andrea's saying, what I'm saying, Todd's saying, I think a better life is to come from an authentic place and you grow together and you have no regrets about the way that you did it. I mean, to me, that's a life lesson. So, Andrea, I love that first principle thinking around that.
And what I would add on to that is, I mean, if you think about, I think about all the things I buy on Amazon that maybe I don't use because it was, real quick purchases and things like that. I don't want people purchasing things that they're not going to use, they're not going to get value out of. And I think that comes across to my clients. They know that. And so if I'm recommending something or sharing something with them, it's because it fits their organization. I've taken the time to understand what's important to them. And so I really, truly believe I don't want somebody to purchase something that they're not going to use. Because it's not valuable. They're not going to renew. And quite honestly, it'll probably break some trust between us.
Yeah, Andrea, I think that's so good. In fact, I want to see if, we've been focusing a whole lot on, now what have I learned as a CSM that I didn't know as a customer? It's been a couple of years and I can honestly say it's been so fun to have someone who was a champion, who had become a champion of a product, and then who's now helping support the growth of that product for other like-minded people. What would you say? Has there been anything that surprised you now being in a CSM role that that were things that you understood or had from your life in IT and as a buyer and as a purchaser of software that has actually served you really well, maybe in an unexpected way, like, oh wow, I didn't know that skill or that insight or that knowledge would help me to be a better CSM?
Well, I think I'm going to say yes. The one thing that it surprised me, I thought it was a qualification, and actually has surprised me a little bit more. This is such a weird way to answer this question. But my IT experience, I work with so many IT people because we're doing software adoption, and then also working with, they work with their L&D, they work with their communications team. And so I knew that it would be beneficial to understand some of the projects that my clients are doing. There are things that I had already done or I'm familiar with. And so I can help them more than just adoption. I can kind of give some industry experience and recommendations. The one thing that I would probably add to that did surprise me, the skill that is working across teams, understanding the dynamics between IT and communications and marketing and L&D, and how the dynamic is in general. Everybody's a little bit different, and sometimes those teams are super close or embedded into each other in an ideal world. But there's a lot of red tape and roadblocks, and so just understanding how to work across those teams, and then being able to help my clients with ideas like, have you thought of this, or should we bring them on? And talk about your goals, or is there somebody else in the organization that really cares about this initiative that we can get some help to increase your engagement or get you better results? And so I would say that was probably the number one skill that kind of surprised me, is just being able to communicate and work across teams and understand the dynamics. So understanding your customers and their organizations, I would say is just really paramount, no matter what you're doing, what kind of CSM you are.
Awesome. Andrea, we're going to pretend that I'm starting out as a CSM at BrainStorm. You have been assigned to be my mentor. You've obviously said first to me, hey, start with authenticity, where you want to begin. That's at the core. What's one or two other best practices you'd say to, hey, if you're going to be a great CSM, here's a couple other skills you're going to want to develop? What would that be?
I think it's maybe revisiting and summarizing some of the things we've already talked about. Really, it's understanding what success looks like, why they purchased, what's their why, and then helping them to kind of frame and convey the why to their users. I think that's one of the biggest gaps in especially software is an organization will purchase software and say, all right, go use this. And they don't really ever convey the why it's important to the organization and why it's important to the users. And so that's something I really try to work with them in the very beginning, helping them with marketing their initiatives. I always ask a few personal things too. I like friends, and all of my clients have become, what I would call, or most of them have become what I would call friends. And so just getting to know them, right? What's important to them, where they live, but also how to help them be successful in their career. Because if I come at it with, I want to make you look good, I want to make your leaders look good, and I want to, make your organization look good, that really tends to translate in those brand new relationships and builds trust really quickly, to be honest.
Yeah, I love that. It's and I think BrainStorm is. I'm always wondering, like, if people hear about our culture and our CSMs and how we approach it, would they feel the same way about the way that their CSMs approach their enterprise relationships? Are you? How many times are CSMs saying, I feel like my customers are my friends? I'm always curious what that's like. In fact, if you are listening to this, you're like, is that what your experience is as a CSM? Or are you like, no, my customer hates me, none of them want to talk to me? And so I'm really curious about that take. And I actually think that's something that BrainStorm does really well. Part of that is because we come in and I would guess, Andrea, that you knew that your role when you started would be very focused on providing advisory and expertise and experience on how to be successful with your campaign, with your initiative, with your strategy from an adoption perspective. So I think that helps. Obviously you had to then learn the sales side of it. That was new for you. Were there other elements of the job of being a CSM that that we maybe haven't hit on that you think are important for us to understand, that you think are like really important skills that either you knew that you had to get really good at the start, or that you like have learned like, oh, I got to figure this out as I go, beyond just like selling and advisory? Like what else is involved in the job for you that's helped you to build those relationships with your customers?
The other two things that I probably didn't mention is prepping for your calls, so that you're not transactional. Really remembering, to step back. I said friends and this and that. It doesn't mean you have to meet with everybody weekly. It doesn't mean you have to be at their beck and call, right? Because we don't have time for that, to be honest, right? We all have so many different clients, and there's a ton that we do for all of them. But really doing a good job at prepping for your calls, using, whatever tools that you use, being prepared to not just, looking at their data and being prepared with some wins, some recommendations, to bring them value on every single call and not be as just transactional, right? Hey, how are you? What can we do? But really, here's what I've seen and here's what I would recommend. Great job on this. Understanding that any data is good data, because it can help you make decisions. And then be sure to follow up. If you have assigned yourself homework, which I have a horrible habit of doing, but I love helping out my clients, be accountable and definitely follow up, and make sure that you're reliable, because that's the fastest way that you can build that relationship, build that trust, and then they become more open and honest and really start to lean on you in a good way, as that expert, because you're able to provide that value in every single call.
Awesome. Andrew, I tell my kids all the time, don't follow in my footsteps, because it's a life of rejection. Andrew, in IT, right? You know, people need you. They come to you. They're asking for help and assistance. Two things. One, how did you get your mindset right when you have a client that just doesn't want to meet with you? I mean, they like you. That's all there. It's just, they just ghosting you. Well, how have you dealt with that with your mindset? Because I think all things start with your mindset. And then maybe if there's a best practice or a tip or a trick that you could give the audience of, here's something that you do to get them to respond. You know, again, every software is different, every way to do it. But if there's a tip that you have, and again, so everyone knows, we don't prep our guests. We like to say, hey, we're at a...
There's been a couple of times where I'm like, Andrew, I'm sorry. I have no idea if you have a good answer for this one. But
we're at a bar, we're having drinks, and we're just shooting the bull about stuff. So we usually have a topic, but other than that, we just ask that. So I'm putting her on the spot when I ask that. So I'm giving her a little bit more time. But number one, mindset. How did you get your mindset right to be like, okay, I got to keep going after this person, keep following up. It's not they don't like me. It's just, you know, they're busy. And then two, is there a tip that you might have for the audience and how you've been able to reconnect with some people?
Absolutely. And thank you for talking a little bit more there, because I wasn't prepped and had to think through that just a second. So appreciate that, Casey. Honestly, it was hard at first, just being honest. I mean, you know, rejection is hard anytime there's a sales aspect to it. You're right. When I was in IT and I would get rejected, I'd just go climb the chain and talk to somebody and influence them. And I'd keep going until, you know, I heard the right reason for no, or influence the right person, right? And when you're working with external people, you're not part of their organization, right? They can't do what you say. And there's a balance with going over their head, to be perfectly honest, because that was something that drove me absolutely crazy with other vendors. And one of the reasons that I absolutely loved BrainStorm is if I wasn't doing or taking the recommendations, you guys would, you know, keep trying with me and bring other people in, but never go over my head. And so there's that balance there. Now, if they're not responding, you know, first of all, reach out to as many people as you have in the company in the contact list, because I've actually had a couple of times where somehow their email server went through an update and our emails were being blocked. So they didn't even know we were trying to reach out. And so I've actually had that happen 3 times too, with current customers that I was live in conversations with and then radio silent. And I just kept reaching out. And then what I ended up doing was reaching out to people on LinkedIn and just saying, hey, are you getting my emails? You know, just anything you can do. There's also a lot of times organizations will go through change. I've had, you know, contacts that have been laid off or changed jobs, and maybe, you know, they work with, you know, 5, 6, 10 vendors, and they don't have time or just didn't think to reach out. And so I think balancing, not going over your contact's head with bringing in additional people that you have on the list or you have as contacts, and then really trying anything you can to just get an answer to say, hey, are you getting my emails? Or, you know, Is this still important? Is this still an initiative that's important to you? You're paying for this. I want to make sure that you get some value over here. So,
Andrew, that is,
you know,
that is amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna give again three best practices for me, because, you know, as you can see, I turned 50 this year, and I know most of you are saying you look like you're 70, but here's 40 years of best practices that I've had. Number one, going back to a little bit of what Andrea talked about, is, you know, when you come from authenticity, I also come from I'm bringing value. And if I don't believe in a company, I leave a company. And I believe that in the company that I work for, I have tremendous value to offer someone. So I believe that this value is worth talking about. And until you say, you know, hey, we're not interested, I'm still in the belief that you believe I'm also bringing value. So I stay on it. I love the LinkedIn thing. Hey, are you getting my email? I just wanted to know. You normally respond, right? So there must be something wrong, and there's a way that we're not doing it. I love that one. Another one, this is from Chris Voss. You've heard me and Todd talk about Chris Voss a ton. He has the subject head that says, did I misunderstand ? And just said, hey, we had talked about having an initiative to do this. Did I misunderstand the importance and timing of that ? That's it. Boom, send it. That's another best practice I love. The other one is just quick, easy messages that keep on changing. So, hey, is AI initiative for you this year? Click a little thing, right? So I just try to find little things that I heard success stories about, put a little message in there, a little thing, and just say, hey, is this of interest to you? This is what I'm hearing. Let me know, right? And again, I don't measure my value on the response rate. I measure my value on my core beliefs of what I'm offering. So I don't know if that helps anybody, but those are a little bit of tips and tricks that I have. Andrea, anything else you want to add to that?
I would just add one thing that you just kind of made me remember. Something I do really often is whether I'm on a call or if I'm trying to get a hold of somebody, I love Chris Voss's strategies, just almost trying to get a no, and just getting some kind of response, but sharing other client stories without sharing their customer names. Hey, I know you used to be, or we talked recently or a month or two ago about onboarding. I have another client that's really killing it with onboarding. I'd love to share their strategy with you. Anything you can share successes from other clients. I mean, they usually eat it up and okay, yeah, let's jump on a quick call. I'd love to hear it or see it.
Okay, so I love that, Andrea. I want to. That last comment brought up something that I want to go in a different direction, but I want to just hit on something that Casey didn't say in what you first mentioned, and I love this. I actually think this is maybe one of those things that being on both sides helped you more, is the idea of not going over your contact's head. Mm-hmm. I think that is such a good point, that we want so badly to succeed that we can basically throw our contact under the bus in a way that actually will do way more harm than good in the long run. And so realizing like you've felt that feeling having a vendor go over your head before. And I'm sure you did not become a fan of them and a friend of them in the long run. So I think that's really good.
That's a true statement.
What I love about that point there, and this is one of the things that I've struggled with a lot working with customers, is how often we're like, so many customers are super, super busy, right? And so your comment about like, here's an idea of something that my other customer did. I'll use the nerdy scientific term of heuristics. Y'all ever heard that term, Casey? You know what that one is?
No.
So heuristics is the process that we go through to make mental shortcuts as humans. So like the more you do something, the less you think about it, right? Mm-hmm. And we're constantly, like, our big part of our brain is constantly looking for ways to not have the mental burden to have to think about something. So if you can provide me a way that makes it so I don't have to actually think about it, that's really, really good. And mm-hmm. I would say probably brings a lot of satisfaction to your customer when you can give them a mental shortcut to a destination that they want to get to. So I love the example of a customer, here's what another customer has done. I'm going to put you on the spot again. Are there other ways that you've found, Andrea, to give your customer kind of mental shortcuts to where they want to go so it doesn't feel as difficult? Because that's one thing that I think we all need to get better at. How do we help people make mental shortcuts to get to their destination so it doesn't feel mentally draining on them so much? And you can tell me
you didn't
too
talk
hard of a question. I'm throwing away. You didn't give me a mental shortcut, Todd, so I quit.
Right.
I'm dropping. Right. I'm storming off this interview right now.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out how to spell the word that you just said. You'll have to drop that, and share with everybody so we can all go research it. But as I'm hoping that I answer this. But I think for my clients, they're always trying to think of different ways to use our platform, right? It's more than a learning platform. It's a change management platform. And so change management applies to all areas of the organization. And so what I try to do is I have a list of some best practices that I've done, that other clients have done. We have great resources. And then all the ways that I would use this platform if I was in IT, or all the ways that, L&D uses it, using our resources, and really keeping those top of mind. Because when you talk about all the different ways, you talk about it in the sales cycle, your contact may not have even been there in that sales cycle. And so they may not even understand. But it's also just like learning anything else, right? You're fed with a fire hose, and you pick out a couple of those low hanging fruit, and then you go try to do those really well and then be successful. Well, in the meantime, maybe that's taken a couple months and all the other things have kind of fallen by the wayside. So keeping those things kind of front and center, continuing to bring them up, mention it, ask about timing. Is this something that you'd be willing to do, interested in doing? Is there anybody in the organization that is interested in this? To me, it helps my clients not have to constantly remember the list from the very beginning. And then teaching them shortcuts as an admin as well, to be able to use the platform and check their data, right? Data is the number one thing that they'll get asked for. What are those KPIs? So trying to kind of surface some of those things that are important to them, and then the things that are important to both of us that we can keep going. I don't know if I answered your question
No, that's good.
the way you wanted, but that's,
we've
I
already
know,
told people we don't
I,
prep you.
you
We're
know,
just we're just eating tapas at a
yeah.
casual restaurant, and it's
You are
just great.
fancy this morning.
Yeah,
I gotta
he is
tell you.
fancy tapas. So yeah, he's out in Spain today eating some appetizers.
He's
down
in
there.
Portugal. I don't know. Put me into that idea.
Yeah, there we go. You know, one of the things I'll give it again, I'm like Todd's using fancy words. I'm full of best practices today. I had a conversation with my son, so maybe I'm just like in dad mode here. But another best practice that I like to go around this is, say the customer says, "Hey, I'm really excited about this new feature you came out with. Great. How do we make users aware of that? What's some of the things that you usually do internally to make people aware of something like this? Oh gosh, we usually do this or this." And then what I usually do is, again, I'm doing this Chris Voss stuff. I like to call things out and go, "Gosh, Andrea, it looks like you're not too excited about doing that. Like, what are you feeling is the biggest challenge about that?" Now, I may not know right or wrong if that person really is feeling that, but what I'm trying to draw out is either a no, and if they go, "Well, yeah, I am kind of a little nervous around that," then I go, "Oh, how do I make that easy for you?" "Well, do you have a template?" "Oh yeah, I have an email template I can send over to you." "When would you want to send that email template?" And this is something that Andrea does really well, because I've been able to work with her and observe her. Is she does not give something without knowing when you're going to do something. Like, I am not in the business of helping you if you're not going to use my help. So I always hear her say, "Okay, so when would you go send that email template out? I could get that out to you today, but when would you then send that out to your users?" "Oh, I would send, okay, so in our next call, let's make sure that we review those statistics and those numbers of open rates, click-through rates, et cetera." "Okay, that sounds good." We've walked away with a concrete plan. So that's one of the things I love to do.
That's a good one too. Mostly because, like, what's heuristics all about? It's like, what usually the mental shortcut we want is, how do I get to a decision faster?
Yeah.
So if you make it easy for me to make the decision,
Yes.
right? Here's the data. Here's the call. Here's what we're talking about. You're going to do this at this time, right? So it's like, all I have to do is agree to the thing rather than actually come up with what the decision is going to be. Like, that's a good example.
Well, and
so,
Casey,
Andrea, you're awesome. Even if Casey put the words in there, so it's good.
Thank you. But it was a lesson I had to learn the hard way, to be totally honest with you, right? Because the follow-up items, I want to make sure and get those. And so, do you have any templates? And I'd send it. And then I didn't ask that question on what your timing is, or they'd say, "Hey, let me have the template so I can go talk to communications." Well, I didn't ask them when they were going to talk to communications. I didn't ask them those questions. You know how many times that I had to send things over and over and over, right? And so it's every call, every couple weeks or every month, and I'm sending the same things. And I learned that lesson pretty quickly, which is, I am happy to dig in. I'm happy to create something for you, find something for you, whatever that is. But I'm going to ask some timing questions. And then give them the leeway, because things change, meetings get canceled, things like that. Let me know if your timing changes between now and the time that we talk. Setting those expectations with them, and then kind of asking for them back. I think that's completely fine. Not being afraid to ask those questions, no matter what they're about or what their timing is. But it was a lesson I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah, and TK, let me give you the opposite of what you're saying. Is sometimes because of our desire to maybe, I don't want to say, it's just, maybe it's uncomfortable, maybe it's direct, I don't know. And I get into this too. Sometimes I'm like, okay, here's all the resources I have available for you. I have email templates, I have a webinar, I have this. Let me send all that over to you. And the person on the other end goes, "Yep, that sounds great." I don't know if they think that's great. They're just because I said I'm going to send this, they're like, okay, yeah, sure, send it to me. I don't even know if you want to use it. And so I'm wasting my time. I'm hoping, because I have this hope, that you're going to actually go do something with it. So I think there's sometimes we think we're getting to that easy yes, and we're making it super easy for them, but they don't care and they don't want to use it. So I think the better approach is usually, hey, I have these resources, but I don't want to waste your time. Is there any of this that you want to use? Or how are you thinking about this? Well, you know what? We usually don't love sending emails. Okay, well, I know you want to get to this outcome. So how do you even make someone aware? Like, what have you done in the past? What has worked? And even if you think that idea is horrible, say, okay, when do you want to start that? And when would we measure that? Because what I want to do is make sure you're getting to the outcome. And the way that we found that work best is when a manager sends out the communication to those employees. So let's go this way. Let's check the data. Let's see how it works. And if that's working, let's keep going. But if it doesn't work and we don't get to those results, could we test this? Try to get a commit right there, right? So that's the other thing is don't make it a yes where it's a false yes in some regard, right? Where you're just like, yeah, here's all the information. Yeah, great, use it. And then you're frustrated because you're like, they never send anything out. Make sure that you're on alignment of what they actually want to do. So again, going back to Andrea's point at the beginning of this, try to draw it out. You got to draw it out of them because none of us really want to say sometimes what our concerns are, that we have a question, right? So you got to really do a good job of trying to draw out what's actually taking place.
Yeah. I think maybe we're my homework from that case, because I really like it, because there's this point of like, well, I gotta figure out how to make it feel easy for my customer to agree to the thing that needs to happen. But I also need to make sure that I'm not making it easy for them to lie to me about what is going to happen, right? So like there's maybe this balance. It's not necessarily about making it easy to say yes. It's saying make it easy to take the next step, right? Mm-hmm. How do I make it easy to take the next step? And I think for me, that's going to be my homework assignment for myself, which is how can I make it easy for my customer to take the next step? I think that's really, really good. So Andrea, I think you've probably seen this show a time or two. You know Casey and I pretty well. You know that our last question that we always ask our guests as part of SaaS Therapy is, hey, you've been with us in this therapy session. We've just kind of gone wherever this session is going to go. But if you could give our audience one piece of advice, one piece of homework, something that they can implement for themselves, Andrea, what would it be?
Always such a great question. Everybody always has an amazing answer to it. So of all the things that we've talked about, there's a lot of different things that you can implement. But number one, help your customers understand success and make it easy for them. I know it's like 3 things, but what does success look like? How do we measure it and make it easy for them to take the next step and take action? So that would be probably my number one. I know it's kind of all in one, but that would be it.
Solid. I'm going to add with yours, Andrea, I'm going to give bonus extra credit. So if you do this homework along with the other homework, you know how you could go from like a B to an A, your teachers would do that. I'm going to add one more. Andrea, I'm going to add to that. Go learn what your success looks like as a CSM. Because it's actually kind of hard to do. Like when you really try to think down through it of like, what would success look like using my software, and really get into understanding that. Like I sometimes will put that into ChatGPT and say, give me 5 ways to explain this easier. So I can actually help someone understand. And they're in this position and they're doing this job. Here's what my software does. What's 5 outcomes? Here's some examples of some that we put out on our site. Help me understand that a little bit more and make it more applicable. So that would be the only other thing I'd add to that. That's fantastic. That's great.
I love
feedback.
that. It helps you become the expert, because that's why they're working with you, right? It's you need to understand their needs and what it looks like, but also offer that value to say, here's what you should be doing. So, and then help them take that next step, right, Todd? Make it easy.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Make it easy. Take that next step. Mm-hmm. Andrea, thank you for joining us. Everybody, if you're still with us, thank you for sticking around. Do your homework. Come back. Report back to us on how it went. We'll promise we'll give you an A just for effort. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks again, Andrea.
Thanks, all.
SaaS Therapy is brought to you by BrainStorm. the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.